Hello, hello, my beauties and bees. Welcome again to another installment of Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, and the polls are in, and my hive loves the idea of talking about changelings, so I'm here for it. If you guys aren't familiar with changeling lore, as Sue put in the audience, yeah, fae fairies. It's a type of fairy lore for the most part, but it's actually pretty. I don't want to say it's a global phenomenon, but like across Eurasia, it's a common thing, and in Africa, the big landmass there, right? It's all one place. So before I get too deep into before I get too deep into it, too lost in the sauce, as they say, what I'm going to do is we're going to look real quick here, just to get an idea what the folklore is. A changeling, also historically referred to as an off or oaf, is a human-like creature found throughout much of European folklore. According to folklore, a changeling was a substitute left by a supernatural being when kidnapping a human being. Or left by a supernatural being when kidnapping a human being. There we go, yeah. Sometimes the changeling was a stalk, a piece of wood made magically to resemble the kidnapped human. More often, the changeling was a supernatural being made magically to look like the kidnapped human. I'm actually going to let him come in and say hi, because he's awful squirrely. Come here. Come and say hi. Come and say hi to my hive. Come here. Henry's having separation anxiety because his dad is at NanoCon. So, say hi, Henry. Say hi. He has a little anxiety right now, so he doesn't want to be left alone. So we're going to hang out. Henry's going to hang out. Yeah, he's a good boy. He's a nice guy. And he's not a changeling. He's just a puppers. Just a puppers. Yes. What a good boy him is. Yes. Yes. Come on, you gotta stay up here, so you gotta make it worth my while and get on the screen and get people watching. People love it. Go. Now, Henry is a champion. He's a tough guy. He just survived Parvo. Oh, don't bite my face. So, yeah, he's on the mend this week. Yeah. And last week he was in pretty rough shape. He wasn't eating much, wasn't going to the bathroom, and was sleeping and was not playing or anything like that. He's really playful now. He's got he's double canined right now because he's got teeth coming in. Yeah, but I hold him like a baby sometimes. But he's a chewy monster. Not a changeling, though. At least not as far as I can tell. Are you a changeling? Were you left by the fairies to harass us? Huh? Alright, get on down. Alright. You're gonna have to occupy yourself, and please stay out of my trash. I cleaned my room, so I got like a big bag of trash right here from all the stuff that I cleaned up. Because I got some new toys last night. I won't tell you what they all were, but I got this riding crop. That's a start. All right, so where were we? Yes, I see you, Henry. I see you. Yeah, he's really eager for some attention. It's like, pay attention to me, Bree. But here's my secret. I love animals, so you're gonna have a hard time. Oh, don't do that. You're gonna end up into my stream. I love animals, so. Ouch, don't bite. He's so chewy. So chewy. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the door cracked so you can come and go. But you need to stop yelling at Bo because he's trying to get some sleep and he was working late. There. I'll leave it like that so you can so you can. Well, I don't want to wake him up though. He's trying to sleep. Let's just close it. You just be good. All right. Anyhow, where was I? Talking about changelings and get distracted by the poppers. Let's see. Yeah, supernatural beings blamed for stealing children include fairies, demons, trolls, nereids, and many others. Usually the kidnapped human was a child, but there were cases, particularly in Scandinavia and Ireland, where adults were taken. Some modern scholars have argued these stories of replaced children or originated as folklore explanations for autism or other developmental conditions. Isn't that sad? We're going to get into it, though. Don't worry. We got a whole lot to cover. And I am not getting away from this little monster. This is my little changeling monster that wants to chew on me. Your favorite species of aliens as a xenomorph? I like xenomorphs, too. Which is your favorite xenomorphs? Obviously, the original xenomorph is awesome. But, yeah, the original from the very first movie. That's my favorite by far. Geiger's original design. A changeling is typically identifiable via several traits, which vary from culture to culture. They'll be like tells, though, you know. In Irish legend, a fairy child may appear sickly and will not grow in size like a normal child, and may have notable physical characteristics such as a beard or long teeth. So things like, a whole slew of medical conditions could be to blame for this. But you know what? Instead of going this alone and talking about changelings, I wanted to cover. Okay, so yeah, Cornwall, Germany, Ireland, Isle of Man, Scottish Lowlands and North England, Poland, Scandinavia, Spain, Wales. Outside of Europe, you got Africa, like I was talking about. Yeah, so there's a lot of diversity among changeling lore, but some of the core things are the same. But I figured I would revisit our dear friend Shrouded Hands and let him tell us about it. Now, Shrouded Hands does horror videos, basically. I mean, that's their main thing. Like they tell the stories about different everything from serial killers to cryptids, ghosts, all kinds of stuff. So it's a fun channel. Check it out. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I'm subscribed because I like Shrouded Hands. I like his accent and I like his storytelling style. So he's going to tell us a little bit about changelings here.
Phenomenon. Hello everybody, Shrouded Hand here. Today we're going to be looking at the changeling phenomenon, an odd and creepy bit of fairy lore that seems to be largely ignored today. I know some of you are more interested in the true crime type videos on this channel, but I think you'll like this one as well. The belief in fairies, whether it's real or not, did inspire some truly gruesome events in history, and I'm going to be covering some of these in the video. The changeling is most often associated with fairies in folklore, but it's also historically been attributed to witches and Satan. It really depends on the culture and...
Yeah, that's the thing too. I was asking Bo this the other day. Do I give werewolf, vampire, or witch? What do you guys think? I'm gonna start a poll. If you had to guess what kind of creature of the night I was. What would you speculate of these three? There we go.
The religious belief of the times. But the story is almost always the same. A person, usually a newborn baby, is swapped with an identical copy. In some rare cases, there are stories of adults being swapped, but most often...
Maybe I wasn't really a twin. Maybe I was maybe I'm a changeling, and they left me, decided not to take the baby, which would be my brother. And I was actually like a fairy princess. And what happened was they were swapping me out for the baby, and they got distracted by something, or something happened that caused it to, now they're twins. Now they're just twins. But I couldn't keep all my fabulousness in. So, here I am, fairy princess. of the unseelie court.
It's a baby. The real baby is taken away for some nefarious purpose, and the parents are left raising a sinister duplicate that will cause untold misfortunes for the family. In some stories, the child is replaced by a lump of wood or wax that resembles the child at first, but soon turns into its original form once it's too late for the parent.
No, you didn't miss the new Woobian video. That's not scared. That's a while off. I think it's in September. Hold on, let me look. The new Woobian. Because yeah, we're gonna crack that sucker open. It's still a ways away though. It's not in September. It's in August. August 29th though. At the end of August, we got a lot of Charlatans Web to come before that. We got Sylvia Brown next week. After that, we got Doc Dino Kenhoven. Or we may have, if I move things around, we may have Anthony Miller before that, the medical medium. Whenever Ben's available for that, we're going to do that, depending on which week it is. But then we got the new Woobian stuff. So it's coming. New Woobie is coming. Looking at this image right here makes me think of one thing. And now I got to play it. Because I didn't mean to pause it like this, but I cannot not do this when I see that. Hopefully it doesn't get me in trouble, but I had to do it.
To retrieve the child. Belief in changelings emerged in the Middle Ages, but carried right through into the 20th century. Often the parents felt that they were to blame for the changeling. It was believed that the fairies would visit unhappy or immoral households and swap the children that were not being watched carefully enough. Mothers were expected to watch over their sleeping babies.
So it's another way to shame mothers, honestly. It's like, oh, your kid has autism, it's your fault you weren't watching him and someone flipped him with a freaking fairy. So now that's all on you, Mom. We should have been watching your baby better. It's just another way to shame women. Go figure.
Absolutely. In order to prevent the fairies from stealing their children. This created an unsettling background of dread for any new parents.
I bet.
Anytime they fell asleep, they might wake up wondering if the child in the cot was still actually theirs. One common solution was to hang an iron poker or a pair of scissors above the cot, due to the belief that fairies were naturally afraid of iron and wouldn't go near it. There was also the idea of a child becoming fairy-struck. This was like a mysterious...
One of the thing about fairies being afraid of iron, it's sort of like I guess garlic. Well, it's more like kryptonite than garlic, because garlic actually will like hurt them. It doesn't just like make them ill. But garlic for vampires, I mean. And the iron thing would be really hard to it'd be really hard to function in the modern world as a fairy, especially in like modern buildings and stuff, like steel frame buildings. Like steel is, it's an alloy with iron in it. But maybe it doesn't work if it's an alloy. Maybe that's the thing. If it doesn't work as an alloy, because like if you compound other materials, they don't have the same effect. Like table salt and chlorine, and chlorine, for instance. Sodium chloride, though.
Fate illness that a child would develop. The change would be more gradual, rather than a sudden swap. More and more of the child's soul would be taken away by the fairies over a course of a few months. It's more like a fairy possession. But either way, the result was always the same. The child was not who they once were, and although they looked exactly the same, they didn't belong to the parents anymore. Once swapped for a changeling, the parents would notice...
replace my spikes, which are steel, these are steel spikes, I replace them with iron spikes, I can fight fairies with them. I can, like, whip up on them. Whoa! But I think with the steel alloy, it's going to be a problem.
Strange changes in their child's behavior. Changelings...
Fairies wear boots, yeah, you gotta believe me. I saw what I saw with my own two eyes. Speaking of, last night, me and Ember Belrad came up to bat for Ozzy Osbourne because the grifter and charlatan Bob Larson decided to come at him the day after the guy died, or the day he died. He actually did made the video, but we responded the day after.
Had a bad temperament, crying constantly and always seeming hungry. There were stories of babies that would drink gallons and gallons of milk and never be satisfied. The changelings would always look exactly like the missing child, but they would develop strange deformities over time. Most common reports were of a child's skin becoming shriveled and discoloured, or fur growing on parts of the body, and the child would always...
That really, well, the fur thing, not so much. That really does sound like maybe they had an intestinal parasite, at least some of them, right? Like, oh, the baby's eating and eating, but not growing and getting any better, and it's getting sick and weaker. In my humble opinion, as not a doctor and not a medical professional, that sounds like there may be some intestinal parasite that's consuming all the baby's food so that it's not getting its nourishment. Just speculation, though. But maybe it's a fairy switched with the real baby, or maybe it's a vampire crawling in the window at night and drinking the baby's blood, because that could happen too.
Remain the same size, refusing to grow. This would cause a lot of sickly children to be misdiagnosed as changelings, and then they wouldn't receive the treatment that they actually needed.
I have a couple of Twitches. I've got a Hellbilly Barbie and then Hive Sci. But I have never done anything on Hive Sci and Hellbilly Barbie. I just assemble furniture sometimes, once in a blue moon.
But even without the physical...
But yeah, feel free to shout me out for sure. Fairy hunter, yeah. No face stands a chance against me.
Or behavioural changes, there was the idea that the parents would just know that the child wasn't theirs. Some sort of parental bonds that was felt before would suddenly be gone. The child wasn't their own, and they just knew it.
Hey, do me a favor. I'm gonna end this poll real quick because I want to know if I showed up in your alerts this morning. So I'm gonna run a quick poll on that. And most of you all agree that I'm a vampire, which absolutely makes sense. I'm going to put on my red sunglasses for that because I'm the vampire queen of El Paso. So I just want to know if you got a notification. Sort of important. The Hive Sci one. Yeah, don't worry about the link to the Hellbilly Barbie thing because I don't do that very often, and it's nothing to do with this. I just I don't want to associate with this channel, basically, because I just, we'd been buying some furniture when we first moved in, and I was assembling it on camera. And that's all I was doing. Oh, good. 67% got something.
And once a changeling was identified, that's when things got really dark. There were various methods for getting a changeling to identify itself, and most of these involved some sort of painful abuse. One common treatment in the 15th century was to give the child a bath in water that had been boiled with foxgloves. The flowers were thought to repel changelings, but as foxgloves are poisonous to humans, bathing a baby in this concoction would often result in an infant's death. In these cases, it would
You don't say, yeah, so it's like ways to kill your baby is the changeling. The changeling. I mean, if you don't have the bell rung, it's not going to give you a notice. So, I mean, keep that in mind. I was alerted to by Aunt Jur that she wasn't getting alerts, and then someone said the first thing this morning that we didn't get alerts, and people rolled in really slow this morning. So I was just curious. Yeah. But this reminds me a lot of like the witch hunts and werewolf trials and of the Middle Ages, right? Except for it's babies who can't defend themselves and say, "Hey, no, I'm not a alien creature."
Been assumed that the child's death was a sign of it being a changeling and that the real child would be returned soon afterwards. However, the history book seems suspiciously absent of any reports of a child being returned after a changeling's death. In 1850, in Ross Cray Island,
just how recent these things are happening. 1850, right? Let's I don't want to call it modern time, but that's like during the industrialization
6-year-old Mary Ann Kelly were distraught to find that their sickly child was not recovering despite doctors' best efforts. She was paralyzed and wasn't gaining any weight. She seemed to be getting weaker by the day. In a desperate attempt to find a cure to her mystery illness,
get it, Sumami. I support that 100%. Travel your times.
He visited a fairy doctor named Bridget Peters. Bridget said that Mary Ann was fairy-struck, and that if they wanted to save their child, they would need to follow her instructions carefully. Mary was given a medicine made from foxglove, verbena, and milk. Although this was highly toxic, it must not have been strong enough to kill her outright. She just became more sick. It was a sure sign that the medicine was working and that fairy magic was at play. This only encouraged them to continue with
foxglove and verbena. Yeah, you murdered that child.
The procedure. The next stage of the treatment was to lie little Mary Ann naked on an iron shovel and leave her outside in the freezing cold air overnight. A mother would sit inside by the back door, listening to her child's tortured crying, all the time repeating the phrase, "Mary Ann, if you are able to come in, please do so." Her belief was that once the fairy spirit had left her child, she'd be able to walk and would return to the house naturally. Of course, this didn't work. On the second...
You don't say! Does that sound like it would work? If my neighbor put their baby on the shovel and left them outside in the cold overnight, I would call Child Protective Services. That's pretty rough.
One day, more medicine was administered, and she was given the same freezing treatment overnight, and again on the third day, and on the fourth, and so on.
Until
somehow, this sickly child endured 6 nights of this before dying. The cause of death was identified as foxglove poisoning and hypothermia. In 1863...
That sounds right. That sounds true. That was the cause of death. Absolutely sounds true. And did it turn out that it wasn't actually a fairy? I'll be damned.
In New York,
yeah.
Mary Nell was told by a friend that fairies had been spotted in her apartment. This led her to believe that her 3-year-old child had been abducted by fairy folk and replaced with a changeling. The prescribed treatment at that time was simple. The child would be made to sit on a red-hot shovel blade. If it was a fairy, it would fly away and the real child would be returned.
That's freaking brutal. Oh my gosh. This is like, y'all picked changelings and I didn't realize it was going to be all about torturing babies. Holy hell.
One day, whilst her husband was at work and without his knowledge, he brought an iron shovel into the house and heated it in the fireplace. Once it was glowing red, she stripped her 3-year-old child and forced them on top of the shovel blade. Of course, the child didn't fly away.
Yeah, the child didn't fly away. What a surprise. Child didn't fly away. So it seems like it's hovering right around the 50-50 mark. To the people who answered no, does it show up after you refresh it?
But just writhed around in agony atop the scalding metal. The resulting burns were so severe that the child died a week later. But in both these cases I've mentioned...
you laid the child on a red-hot shovel and they died. They must have been a fairy.
And the resulting deaths were mercifully quick compared to the ordeals that some children went through.
Oh boy.
In many cases, when the changeling refused to leave and the child remained alive, the abuse would continue indefinitely. One case was that of Walter Trevelyan of Penzance, England. Although he died at the age of 2...
Yeah, if your baby had colic and it was crying and you couldn't get it to stop, put on a hot shovel to make sure it's not actually a fairy or a red hot shovel blade. Where did the shovel become the standardized tool to deal with changelings? Because you're not supposed to touch them, so you pick the baby up with a shovel like a scoop of coal.
In 1843, his short life had been one of almost constant suffering. Thought to have been swapped for a changeling as a baby, he was tortured on a daily basis. He would be starved for days on end. In the winter, he was tied up in a tree so that he would be exposed to the freezing winds. He would be forced to lie face down on gravel for long periods of time. On a number of occasions, they would hang him upside down till his face turned purple and he lost consciousness. At night, they made him sleep on a mattress filled with corks. This uneven surface was made purposefully uncomfortable so that he couldn't find an end to his torments even at night.
So they're like trying to make life so uncomfortable for the fairy that it leaves on its own, and the baby puts the baby back into place. However, because there's never been, as far as I know, an actual case that was confirmed that the baby was taken by fairies, it's safe to assume that these changeling children were just the children experiencing some kind of most of this is infants, so a lot of infant illnesses are going to cause chronic crying and wasting diseases and things like that. This is starting to sound like a guilt-free way to euthanize unwanted children. That's kind of what, I could see that. Be like, oh man, we can't afford another baby. What if we say this baby was taken by the fairies and this is a changeling and we just kind of throw it away?
It's hard to believe that parents would willfully subject a child to such treatments. It really is testament to how strong the belief in fairies was in some people and how much they feared them. A lot of the punishments are reminiscent of witch trials. There seems to be very little way for the child to convince a parent that they are not in fact a changeling. Any protests are seen as further evidence of the changeling's evil ways. Often death is the only way for the child to escape the punishment. One method for uncovering a changeling is described in a Scottish book on folklore from...
Now, the Scottish have some pretty brutal methods for doing a lot of things. They have this divination ritual where you got to, like, roast cats on living cats on a spit, like on a turning spit, and you have to keep the spit turning for X amount of hours, and the cat has to be just far enough away that it doesn't kill the cat, but just torments it so it screams the whole time. Really crazy stuff. So Scottish folklore was actually pretty damn brutal. This is where the land where Robin Redcap comes from. Keep that in mind. We covered that a few weeks back. The evil goblin-y fae spirit that dips his hat in the blood to stay red.
1881. A basket is placed above a roaring fire, suspended from the branch of a hazel tree. The suspected changeling is placed into the basket. If the child screams, then that's sure evidence that they're a changeling. And then those...
If you start slow roasting your baby over the fire and they scream, it means they were a changeling the whole time, and you're guilt-free. Exactly.
Those present have to quickly run to the child and hold them firmly in place above the fire. Once the ordeal is over, the changeling's body is taken to a crossroads, where it was believed that the body would be taken away and the real child would be returned.
She turned me into a newt. I got better.
To them. And this is only a small sample of the abuses carried out in the name of banishing a changeling. Other methods include half drowning a child in a bathtub full of urine. Another is placing them on...
First of all, I want to know where you're getting enough urine to fill up your bathtub. Because it sounds like if you're doing it by yourself, weeks worth of challenge, and that's gotta stink, right? That gotta be rank by the time that there's enough in there to put the baby in there. How you explain that to the authorities is a whole nother thing. But I guess back then killing a baby wasn't as the same as like killing a person who could... I mean, it was, but it wasn't. Lots of people would leave their babies outside to die of exposure and stuff like that. It's a way to deal with it without having to actively off the child. They would just abandon the child somewhere.
them alive in a hot oven. They could also have a hot poker forced into their mouth or simply be beaten to the point of near death. In the parents' eyes, they were simply carrying out the abuses on an inhuman creature, and they felt justified in what they were doing. The most recent changeling case I can find happened in 1895 in Ireland. And the
1895, right? That's, I mean, I have well, I don't have, they're not alive anymore. I had a great grandparent that was alive back then. Just to think how recently that was. I've talked to people who were kids at that time.
Tim was a 26-year-old woman. Bridget Cleary had been happily married to Michael Cleary for 8 years, but in 1895 that all changed. Bridget had become ill with bronchitis and showed no sign of recovering.
Have you done a video on the Leonon She, the Fae vampire? No, I have not. Are there more modern cases of it? So, like, I guess the main thing for CrypticCorner is I don't want to get into covering a whole bunch of folklore stuff as much as I do, like, stuff that people are actually claiming that they've experienced, right? So if there's people out there claiming they've had experiences with the Leonon She vampire, then I'd be interested in covering that.
Her condition became so bad that a priest was called in to perform last rites. However, her husband was highly superstitious. The house where they lived was rumoured to be built on a fairy mound, and soon he began to suspect that her illness could be the result of Fae magic. He accused Bridget of being a changeling.
There are a lot of Fae to cover, though. I do have, like on the back burners, I have things like banshees and stuff like that. So we will get into Irish Fae. I kind of wonder if the justifications were to spare the other children from the truth originally, like Hansel and Gretel being about child unaliving. Yeah, Hansel and Gretel is a story that punctuates that narrative that, you know, poor folk without a lot of options and not enough food to go around would abandon their children in the forest or abandon their infants more often. And to say the fairies took them absolves you of guilt or absolves you of criminal prosecution if the courts believe in that that's true. Or if the baby was not actually a person, it was actually a changeling, or you at least, in your deeply held spiritual beliefs, you believe that your child was a changeling.
His convictions were so strong that he managed to convince his own children and neighbours, and they started to believe it too. One night, in an attempt to bring the real Bridget back, Michael and his children and neighbours gathered at the house and subjected Bridget to a string of abuses. Along with a series of beatings, she was doused with urine and held over a burning fire. Towards the end,
psychotic behavior because of folk beliefs. These things can get dangerous. This is dangerous territory, and there's still stuff like this today. Like we covered last night. That's why I will never leave Bob Larson alone. It's the same bullshit. Someone who's struggling maybe with some mental illness or any other kind of illness, and these grifters come in and say it's some kind of spiritual affliction and abuse them. Whether it's taking them to Bob Larson's church to get hit in the face with a Bible repeatedly. Why is my mic peaking so? Oh, there it goes. I was way up on the microphone. Or if it's, you know, torturing a woman who's allegedly possessed by fairies.
End of the ordeal. Michael held a burning lump of wood to his wife's mouth and told her to say her real changeling name 3 times. When she refused, he poured lamp oil all over her body and set her alight. Of course, Bridget died of her injuries soon after that. In most of these cases, the people involved were arrested and imprisoned for murder, which shows that although the belief in the supernatural was strong among common people, it wasn't so readily recognised in the eyes of the law. Most changeling cases can be explained away quite easily today. A lot of them were undiagnosed mental or physical illnesses.
Oh, I didn't even say, Jester, thank you so much for the $5 also. Much love. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support. Any support you guys can provide to the Hive right now is going to be super appreciated. Yeah, I mean, I'm doing all this and that for work, but it's not making ends meet all the time. So any support that you can throw my way would be much appreciated, much loved.
The children, combined with the desperation of a superstitious parent to bring them back to health. Instead of accepting that their child had an incurable illness, they resorted to methods that just seem crazy today. There's also forms of mental illness.
I mean, and they would have had like people they trusted in their lives telling them how to do this too. It wasn't just these superstitious bumpkins. There were, there were wise women and wise men that would say, yeah, this child's been taken by a changeling. You need to do these things to get the changeling to go away and bring your kid back.
We recognize today, such as Capgras syndrome. It's a paranoid delusion where a sufferer believes that loved ones have been replaced with a copy.
Yeah, let's look at that real quick. Because I have that one pulled up too. So Capgras delusion. Capgras delusion or Capgras syndrome is a psychiatric disorder in which a person holds the delusion that friends, spouse, parents, or other close family members or pets have been replaced by an identical imposter. It is named after Joseph Capgras, the French psychiatrist who first described the disorder. Capgras delusion is classified as a delusion misidentification syndrome, a class of beliefs that involves the misidentification of people, places, or objects. And it can occur in acute, transient, or chronic forms. Some cases in which patients hold this belief that time has been warped or substituted have also been reported. And it talks a little bit about the history and stuff here, but Capgras delusion occurs in roughly 0.12% of the general population and 1.3% of those with existing mental illnesses such as schizophrenia, where you're already dealing with a lot of sensory deception. Let's see. So symptoms of Capgras delusion include a genuine belief that close relatives, friends, or significant others have been replaced by an imposter. A sudden change of behavior when dealing with that close relative, friend, or significant other. Refusing to talk to or talk in the presence of the believed imposter. Feeling fear or anxiety in the presence of the believed imposter. Acting aggressively towards the believed imposter. This may include verbal outbursts, threats of violence, or attempts to physically attack them. Acting aggressively towards other loved ones who do not believe there is an imposter. Feeling as of agitation, anger, upset, or confusion. Feeling a paranoia or lack of trust towards the believed imposter and or other close family members and friends. Refusing to accept any evidence that show the believed imposter is not an imposter. Becoming focused or fixated on exposing the imposter. And this can backfire too.
In modern times though, fairies don't often get the blame, but belief that babies are stolen or possessed with a duplicate still exists in one form or another. A common case that still happens on a frighteningly regular basis is the belief that the child is possessed by demons, and in the process of exorcising these spirits, they get subjected to similar barbaric abuses as the changelings did in the past.
Yeah, exorcism.
There's also stories of alien abductions that are extremely...
Woo! Hey, thank you so much. Who's your buddy? That's my buddy. That's who's your buddy. Gifting out memberships like they're hot. And it looks like they were received by Drusilla, Intrepid Chimp, alias fake name, the Indescribable Octoman, Anarchic Fox, Apostate Sisters, Kip Davis, Ryan, Cultastic, Bryce Vining, and Tilting at Windmills. Thank you so much for the gift memberships. You all enjoy stomping across there with your Bigfoot stompers, with your Bigfoot feet just like this. This is how we do it. There you go. Look, Bigfoot walking right across the chat. Isn't that amazing? Now all of you can do that too. Hello, Victoria.
Similar to past stories of fairy abduction, in some cases the baby is swapped whilst it's still in the mother's womb. New Age beliefs in things such as star seeds and indigo children can be seen as retellings of the same ancient changes.
And if you'd like more star seeds, last week's video, I believe was last week's, we did the Lyrans. They were like lion people. Well, there were different ones. There were lion people and cat people, or lion people and bird people, and humanoid people.
Folklore. Although these stories might evolve over time, the core belief that a person can be replaced or possessed by a creature from another world is common across almost all cultures. There have been some good modern day depictions of the Changeling story. Most of them don't deal with the paranormal at all, but the core idea is always the same. One I can recommend is a film called We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's adapted from a book, but I haven't read the book, so I can only recommend the film, really. It doesn't contain any supernatural elements
Was that Tilda Swinton?
However, it deals purely in the psychological tension between a mother and her son. There's a real sense of horror as the mother slowly becomes convinced that her son is a sociopath, and that her own behaviour towards him might have contributed to his developmental issues. As I say, it doesn't have any paranormal element whatsoever. There's no sense that the son was ever swapped with some fairy...
Does Tilda Swinton play the mom? This looks good. Now maybe watch this. I saw John C. Reilly in a second ago too.
Creature or anything like that, but it's a changeling story in every other sense. If you want a good understanding of some of the psychological issues surrounding a lot of these changeling cases, and then I definitely recommend this movie. Another movie which I can recommend is almost like an inversion of the classic changeling story. It's called Goodnight Mommy, and the premise is that the mother of two boys goes away for some kind of facial surgery and returns with her face covered in bandages. Her personality seems slightly changed, I guess, from the strain of the surgery and her life, and the boys become convinced that their mother has been replaced with a copy, and that once she removes her bandages they'll see that it's not her underneath. It's a classic changeling story, but it's almost like it's been...
I'd watch that too. That's they replaced their mom, or someone tried to replace their mom.
...inverted. And similar to We Need to Talk About Kevin, it doesn't really have any proper paranormal element to it. It's purely about the psychology of the situation. There's also a movie actually called The Changeling. Again, it doesn't have anything to do
This is
with...
the one that, you know, that when I think of modern changeling cases, this is what I think of. Because they treated her like she was crazy. I don't know, let Shrouded Hands cover it, and if he doesn't tell it good enough, I'm going to cover it. I'll tell it again.
Fairy folklore. It mostly revolves around a real-life murder case and a woman's missing child being replaced by a stranger. I just find it interesting that these three modern retellings of the Changeling story contain all the classic elements, but the paranormal side of it has been completely removed. And then there's movies like Rosemary's Baby.
Okay, so he's not going to break it down. So I'm going to tell you guys. Okay, so the case of... Let me see if I can pull it out. And there was a film made out of it with Angelina Jolie and Clint Eastwood was in it. But it's based on the real life, what they call the Wineville chicken coop murders, right? Let me pull this over. So, which involves 4 boys being kidnapped and murdered in Southern California. The one of the boys, though, was actually the case that was used for this. Where's the... I'm looking for a link to the actual... because this is all about Yeah, here it was. The disappearance of Walter Collins. So, Walter Conrad Collins was a 9-year-old boy who went missing in 1928. And 5 months after Walter went missing, a different boy claimed to be Walter. When Walter's mother, Christine C. Collins, refused to believe this claim and insisted the boy was not her son, she was committed to a mental hospital for 10 days until the imposter confessed. So they actually forced this woman whose son had disappeared, right? He disappeared. And then this kid in freaking Illinois, right, said, I'm him. Take me out to California to my mom. So they took the kid to California, and it really turned out that he just wanted to go. He was, DeKalb, Illinois is where he was, but he was actually from Iowa. This kid, what was his name? It's on here somewhere. No, it's not important anyway. But he was full of it. Yeah, oh, there it is. He was actually, he wasn't even 9. He was a 12-year-old Arthur Hutchins Jr., a runaway from Iowa. And he had like a passing resemblance to Collins, but a mother who had spent the last 9 years raising the child knew that it wasn't her child. And he was just looking for a meal ticket. And instead of believing her that this wasn't her child, the police thought that she was crazy and had her committed. And she spent over a week in the hospital where they were trying to convince her that this imposter was her son. And it eventually he confessed, and like, where do you go from there? She was supposed to get this huge settlement, right? But she was never able to collect on it. They kept, which Jones was never paid. Collins won a lawsuit against Jones and was awarded $10,800, which Jones never paid. So the detective who tried to force her to accept this strange child as her own was fined and never paid it. Go figure. But it turns out that there was a serial killer, Gordon Stewart Northcott, and it was actually him and his mother, Sarah Louise Northcott. They were a team of serial killers. They killed 4 boys together, and one of the boys was assumed to be Walter Collins. However, Christine Collins never accepted that. Never. She died believing that her son was still out there somewhere. In 1964, at the age of 75, she died, still in hopes that she would one day be reunited with her son. But so that story gets left out a lot, or that part of the story when you come to, because there's nothing supernatural to it, like Shrouded Hen said, but it's really disturbing that the police would do this to a grieving mother. Holy shit, right? Anyway.
Phoebe and Grace, which are basically a Changeling story, but with a more satanic element to it. I find the persistence of folklore into modern culture quite an interesting subject. These stories always seem to stay the same, but as our understanding of the world increases, the superstitious elements seem to dwindle. But even so, who's to say the superstitions of the past didn't have some element of truth to them? An alarming number of children do go missing in woodlands and
holy shit. And yeah, this is another thing that's going to come up here on Charlatan's web. And I believe Stu Mommy has agreed to come on and do the David Paulides missing 411 grift. Yeah.
forests each year. And who's to say that in some of these cases the fairy folk didn't take them? And the ones who come back, how do we know that they're the same children who went away in the first place? Maybe there is something in it after all. So thank you for watching this episode. Hopefully it's had a good mix of worldly crimes mixed with otherworldly folklore. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to, please check out the merchandise store. All the artwork on there is drawn by me, so not only do you get to support the channel, but you will...
I like Shrouded Hands. It's one of my favorite sort of macabre channels. I like his storytelling. This is an old one too, like from 6 years ago. So hopefully it's cool with me covering it. Just give it a bump. The changeling myth was often used on children who were autistic or otherwise neurodivergent, especially on people who were nonverbal or who had severe meltdowns. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Some people still believe in changelings to this day. I'm only 22, and my mom, who was told about changelings by her grandmother and who is very into New Age spirituality, really thought I've been taken. She didn't hurt me, but was quite cold towards me at first because she refused to believe I'm her child. It's really sad. Also, I was diagnosed with autism pretty early on, but my mom refused to believe it. Instead, she believed in the whole indigo children bullshit. Instead of me getting proper treatment, I was fed bullshit all my life. It sucks. Yeah, you told you were the special indigo child when, you were autistic and just needed to have that recognized and have the proper protocols followed for helping a child to retain or to attain their education and socialization within the parameters of what treatment plans are available for that condition, right? Instead of that, you're an indigo child. You're just super, super special. You're just the specialist. Let's see. My son had extremely bad colic for 6 months as a baby. I remember how I just wanted everything to end. Yes. My daughter had like severe constipation issues when she was a baby. And she would cry and cry, and I know I have tummy problems too, so I could like empathize with it. And it's just like, oh my gosh. Now my oldest had colic, but not for very long. Let's see. I could never tell if it was day or night because I never stopped crying. Doctors had no explanation and just told me one more week or one more month we can't do anything. After a few weeks, nothing felt real anymore. Like I was in some sort of simulation. I don't know why they put stimulation, but simulation. Like I was performing for the world around me because no one could possibly relate to what my family was going through. I recently heard a young baby with the same guttural cry in an airport, and I could see the franticness of the mother worrying about disturbing those around her when she was clearly needing support and understanding. These changeling stories are definitely rooted in postpartum depression, anxiety, and PTSD. While I can empathize with the feeling of hopelessness when dealing with a sticky child too. Sticky child are gross. With a sickly or difficult child, I will never understand how you could enact such horrific abuse. I can't even stomach it. It's pure evil. They really thought that their child was not their child, though. They thought their child had been genuinely replaced with a monster. But the depression stuff, like what they're talking about here, really does remind me of like the Babadook. If you haven't ever looked into that, Mr. Babadook represents the mother's depression in that film. It's a psychological thriller, but it's about her dealing with depression and dealing with psychological decline due to depression and isolation. It's a rough movie to get through, but if you like psychological stuff like that, it's a lot like what that clip they showed for that movie with the boys had their mother replaced. It's very similar to that in outline. Anyway, yeah, so when it comes to changelings, what a fun topic you guys picked for this week. Appreciate y'all let me know what you want to see. There was overwhelming support for watching this topic, for breaking down this topic and making it the subject matter. Why does my makeup keep getting smeared right there? It's the same spot. Or is that a shadow? I think that might be the shadow from my lash with the light hits my face. Okay. I can handle that. If it's just a shadow, I can handle that. I thought it looked like my makeup was messed up, though. I cannot be walking around with messed up makeup. Anyway, what do you all think of changelings as a psychological problem? I was in the psych world with a woman who had postpartum psychosis. I didn't ask questions. Yeah, that's so sad. Postpartum psychosis is rough. Anyway, let me know what you think about changelings in the comments down below. Do you disagree with my assessment of the situation? Do you have a different theory on what could be the phenomena that's happening here? Let us know. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you interact in the comments. Even if you disagree with me, you look in the comments on my videos, I'll argue with people or engage with people who disagree with me all the time. Anyway, I'm looking forward to reading your opinions. Please remember to be kind. Take care. We will see you next time.